Countdown to kickoff continues. The Jaguars entertain the Cleveland Browns in week 2, and the new voice of the Browns is a face and voice that you know very well as you're a football fan. Andrew Siciliano with us. Great to see you. I've never met you before, which is odd. We've been around the league. You've been around the league forever. I've been here forever. We've never really crossed paths, but it's great to be with you.
Well, JP, it's great to be with you. Great to connect. I was listening to the pod yesterday. You got to tell Prisco to calm down, man. I mean, like he gets so fired up. I thought Tony was going to go after him on some of their conversations there, but it's good to connect like this, and I will certainly see you on the field. Hopefully the rain stays away. Trevor Bank Field coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, I usually just play referee on Monday, let Tony and Pete do their thing and stay the heck out of the way and throw to commercial. That's the safest place for me.
I get it. I thought you did a great job refereeing. You stayed out of the way. They were going at it. And I don't know. I've never heard Pete happy with play calling or tackling in my entire life. So if he had been on Monday, it would have been news.
Yeah. You should listen every Monday because that's for the last 10 years how it's been with Pete. All right, Andrew, let's start with the Browns defense. They gave up some points last week, but they've got every level covered. I mean, they've got talent up front, obviously, with Garrett. The linebacker's fantastic. They've got corner play. What is it about this Browns defense that they'll be able to bounce back, right, most of this season? That seems like the strength of this team.
Yeah, I think they will. I think that's the one thing they could rely on. I think they would need, considering the offensive struggles week 1, and who knows how quickly they can get back on track there. They're going to need the defense to collectively stand on their head, I guess, for lack of a better description, I think in September to get some wins, and especially coming up against the Jaguars as well. They had the sack early on the first possession from Dalvin Tomlinson where he just ran through Dak Prescott's chest. But then, a couple of minutes later on the next possession, they got the busted coverage there and Brandon Cooks. Give Dak credit. He beat the blitz. He lofted it to the end zone, and they got the touchdown there. Denzel Ward lamented this week that he probably could have had 2 or 3 picks. He's going to work on the jugs machine. Joked that he might play catch with reporters on the field before the game because they need those turnovers. They need those field flipping plays, and they need to give the offense some short fields. They did give the offense a short field on the initial drive, thanks to special teams, a Jalen Darden punt return that set them up for the long Justin Hopkins field goal. But they need more of those. They actually did force some 3-and-outs, not only in the first, but in the third quarter. And there seemed to be at least a little bit of a momentum shift possibility in the third after some of those 3-and-outs, but the offense couldn't do its part.
When you have Myles Garrett, you always have a chance.
Yeah.
Where from guys, I mean, it seems like he's at some point, if this continues, he might already be in Canton at some point, but he's solidifying his case. If you're starting a defense, I know you're a little biased now, but would you rather have Parsons or would you rather have Garrett? Or at that point, they're pretty close together, it seems like. He's right there at the top of his game.
Yeah, it's a great question for which there is no wrong answer. I think Myles, you're right, is destined to make the short drive down to Canton. Actually, I don't know if this has changed, but a couple of years ago, Myles told me that he won't go to Canton until he's in, and that wasn't an arrogant thing. It was more like much like in hockey, I don't want to touch the Stanley Cup until I win the Stanley Cup kind of thing, because Stefanski had in the preseason, I think before the Hall of Fame game, had organized kind of a field trip, a tour of the building, and he said, no, I don't want to go. And Stefanski honored his request. Now, Micah is younger, right? So Micah is in year 3. So I think just from a contractual standpoint, he's still on a rookie deal. You would probably take Micah. But there is no wrong answer because Myles Garrett is inevitable.
Andrew Siciliano with us, the voice of the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson, I mean, there's a lot going on around Deshaun.
Yeah.
It's been a lot going on around Deshaun since he showed up in Cleveland, but he's on the field now. It didn't look great last week for him, obviously. Is the old Deshaun still in there? And how, as a player, do you find your way back to what got you to this point?
It's a great question. And JP, I actually had a nearly identical question for Kevin Stefanski Sunday morning on our pregame show in Cleveland. I went back to week 10 last year, which was the last healthy performance. Although he really wasn't healthy, we find out he had a broken bone behind his scapula and he had a high ankle sprain in that game. But week 10 last year, he was 14 of 14 in the second half on the road at Baltimore, and they beat, at that point, what was a juggernaut of a Ravens team on the road. He played a perfect half, rallied him back, the old Deshaun scrambles, and he was great. I said, that Deshaun that you saw week 10, have you seen that Deshaun this summer? And he was adamant. Yes, absolutely. We did not see that Deshaun week 1 against the Cowboys. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If you go back and watch the first 2 possessions against the Cowboys, quick drops, getting the ball out. He had a drop or 2. He had a ball off of Amari Cooper's chest in which Kalen Carson, the rookie 5th-round pick out of Wake, blatantly pass interfered. Blatantly should have been called for interference, and the refs gave the rookie the call there over the veteran. I'm not saying that if they get the flag there, all of a sudden we see a better Deshaun at all. I'm saying there were glimpses, but the bad far outweighed the good. You have the very interesting dynamic here of Kevin Stefanski kind of tearing the offense down to the studs in the offseason to bring in Ken Dorsey. And they went a lot more 5 wide. They went a lot more empty. Can you establish a run game that way? It is very much a work in progress. And I know the people in Cleveland are banging the table for, well, this is evidence that you needed to play everybody in the preseason. I would push back strongly against that. Having worked with the Rams and Sean McVay for all these years, he plays nobody. They're fine week 1. I think it's far more an issue of everybody was injured during training camp, and that lack of cohesion from those injuries, I think, was evident week 1.
I got to say, you sound like a hometown announcer calling for pass interference calls already.
Well, this one was bad. You got to remember, I have been a fan of the Browns since I was 11 years old. So it's also going to take probably some pumping of brakes on game day, JP, so I don't go too overboard with the fandom.
Andrew Siciliano with us. Amari Cooper, Jerry Judy added to the mix, and Njoku's out this week. He put up a couple touchdowns against the Jags last year. But Cooper and Judy, having those 2 guys out there, guys who've played some football at a high level, where do they rank in your mind as duos in the league? Jags just saw the best duo in the league, in my opinion, last week in Miami.
The duo conversation is interesting because if healthy, it's hard to go against, say, like Diggs and Addison, although he's in only his 2nd season up there in Minnesota, or the guys you saw last week, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I don't know how anyone's better than those guys. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp here down the street from where I sit right now. Amari Cooper is special. His age begins with a 3 now. So he's getting up there, but he still had 265 yards on Christmas Eve last year in Houston to rewrite the Browns record book. He had a fantastic season, back-to-back 1,000-yard years. Judy gives him a different kind of weapon. He did look good. His one drop came when he got blasted by a safety this past week, but the Njoku loss is huge. He rarely comes off the field, but the bigger issue is that Jordan Akins was the only other tight end on the roster. Giovanni Ricci, who is more of an H-back, got hurt in camp, got hurt in the preseason. And so Cameron Latu, the former Niner 3rd-round pick, is on the practice squad. They had to bring in Jeff Swaim this week. They only had one other tight end last week. That's it, period. So Jordan Akins and Deshaun Watson have familiarity from back in Houston. That's why he's here to begin with. He is going to have to see a bigger role, a much bigger role, but it is certainly an issue of concern. Now, the one good thing here for the Browns, or the one little bit of optimism, is that when they put the 4 guys on defense on IR this week, Njoku did not go on IR. So that seems to suggest that his return could be sooner than was feared initially.
Andrew Siciliano, voice of the Browns. Tough division, AFC North, Ravens, the Steelers. We'll see what goes on with them. I mean, is this a Browns team that can compete? Is this a team that's ready for the big time?
Going into last week, everyone said yes, without a doubt. Not only ready to compete, but ready to compete for New Orleans. Obviously, week 1, that was a punch in the mouth, and that goes without saying nor amplifying, and nothing I could say makes it worse. Week 1 to week 2, every coach will tell you, I think Doug said it this week, right? Maybe I'm mixing up my pressers. You see the biggest jump week 1 to week 2. They need a big jump. Week 2 to me is the truth serum. Week 1 is a liar. So we'll find out Sunday.
Great stuff as always, man. Nice to visit with you. Congrats on the gig, and good luck with the earthquakes. I mean, you were in LA, and the day we taped this, you were shaking like 20 minutes before. So I'm glad you're okay.
It was a 5.1, JP. We haven't had a 5.1 in a little bit. It wasn't the strength of the earthquake, not to bore people in Jacksonville. You guys get tropical storms, I know. It was the duration. It lasted about a good 10 seconds. Wow. It was one where you go, oh, that's an earthquake. Oh, wow. That isn't stopping. So that's why this one was a bit different. But everyone's good here. Life goes on.
Glad to hear it. We'll see you on Sunday, Andrew. Thanks.
Sounds good.